All right, Maggie, whenever you are ready, go ahead and kick it off and share your screen, and then we'll be able to know what you
Great.
know.
And I appreciate you assuming that I am technologically capable of sharing my screen. Oh, there we go. There's a button for that. Isn't that comforting? So ignore the fact that I have titled this slideshow Machu Picchu. I just couldn't come up with anything else. So thank you for the intro and for doing the one sentence brief. And I would be remiss if I didn't go ahead and shame my little brother who is at 29 Palms and is tuning in. So hello, Lieutenant Baby Brother. And with that, over to NatSecGirlSquad. So as you all already know at this point, my name is Maggie Feldman-Pilch. I'm the founder of NatSecGirlSquad. We are a for-profit entity, a social impact business focused on building competent diversity in national security and defense. So I think most of us probably have one of these rogue pull-up bars in our house, at least these days. And really what NatSecGirlSquad is about is challenging the default. Why do we have a picture of a rogue pull-up bar? Well, because pull-up bars are a standard width, right? They're a standard diameter. And much like the Army physical fitness test that asks us to do leg tucks, the bar is standardized to a man's grip. And if you are not a man and you're doing pull-ups and you're being tested on pull-ups with a standard, you can't see me, but air quotes, standard pull-up bar, you're not actually just being tested on leg tucks or pull-ups, you're being tested on your grip strength plus whatever exercise. So ultimately what NatSecGirlSquad aims to do is challenge the idea of the default, right? What have we built our system around, and are we aware of the standards we're using? And what are the implications of those choices? And if someone can just go ahead and tell me where I'm at seconds-wise, because there's actually not a clock on my view, that would be super helpful. So we talk about something called PMS, and those that know me have heard this before. What is PMS? Well, PMS stands for pale, male, and stale. The S is pretty important here. Why? Because you can't do anything about how you were born, right? It's not your fault that you were born a white guy, but you absolutely have control over whether or not you're stale. We consider PMS to be the most significant national security threat of our time, because at the end of the day, every challenge and opportunity we face is a people one. Who's in the room matters, who's making the decision, who's executing that decision, who's ensuring that that the outcomes of that decision is fed back into the loop to command. All of those things matter. The messenger matters. And we're really concerned about basically PMS, right? So pale, male, and stale. This shouldn't be news to anyone who's ever heard me speak. What happens when we have PMS? Well, you're looking at it. Who our leaders are is not so much an outcome as it is a system. Obviously, when a system is built by a group of people that share a default position, right? When everybody's got the same grip width, they're not going to notice the bumps and bruises along the way, and they're probably not going to notice that it's not working for a huge chunk of people, right? And frankly, for the majority of people. And our viewpoint is really that if your culture, if your system, if your style of innovation, if your decisions are only suiting a small percentage of the population, then they're not good, right? We're really trying to do away with this idea that women need something special, that anybody needs something special, that in fact, what we talk about as the default isn't really the default. And we think about something called apple chocolate space, which is the distribution of goods. We're aiming for Pareto optimality. So for my fellow economists out there, the idea that how do we get everybody to the desired outcome, or as close to the desired outcome, without disadvantaging anybody else too significantly. Said another way, what is the most efficient use of resources? So what happens when you don't do that? And what happens when you allow PMS to fester? This is what you get. 7 versions of exactly the same thing, staring at each other, being like, wait, I'm unique. No, Spider-Man, there's like 50 of you and no one really cares because honestly, like, you're just an arachnid man. Other things that can happen when PMS is allowed to fester, really popular trends like the Saltine Challenge, which is exceptionally stupid. And another way of looking at it is how many times can you say the same thing, but in different words, ultimately resulting in the same outcome and also sounding like an asshole, right? So weird flex, but okay is the same thing as uncommon muscular fiber behavior, indicating that you are doing well and showing off, but is not necessarily an issue per se, right? You said the same thing, it was completely unnecessary, and you wasted everybody's time. And particularly when you're dealing with something like national security, you need to make sure that you're not wasting anybody's time and that you're doing what you intend to do. Another example of what happens when we allow PMS to fester, in my experience, I had the opportunity to sit in a room and listen to a bunch of senior former national security leaders try and explain to me why building a nuclear power plant in Egypt with the Russians was a good idea. And it was several years ago. I was even younger than I am now. And I didn't speak up. And fortunately, down the line, somebody did. But just the bluff of that project was dumb. And someone should have been able to speak up, and more than that, they should have been able to be heard, and the idea should have never gotten as far as it did. So what are we aiming for? Lethality. And one of my favorite things about this picture is that you look at the outfits, nothing about this makes any sense, right? Like when you are aiming for lethal, ready, agile, resilient, you should make sure you're prepared to actually execute those things, and that your efforts, your ends, ways, and means match up, right? There's nothing about Danny Glover in a tweed suit that says like that's a man that can move quickly. This is really what we're aiming for. Functional, efficient, really more comprehensive, and like has pockets, right? Like anyone who knows anything about women's clothing knows that we lack pockets. If we had more pockets, we would be more functional. And again, competent diversity is about functionality. It's not about warm fuzzies. It's not about making anybody feel good. It's really about what works, and are we doing what works even when can we do the right thing at the right time, the right way? So what is NatSecGirlSquad? The NatSecGirlSquad is essentially the mob, but it's like a mob for America as opposed to organized crime. What I mean by that is we're an enormous, enormous community. At this point, we interact with about 30,000 people each month. So whether you knew about us or not, you're interacting with us. And the idea is we're here to take care of one another. We want to build expertise. We want to build confidence in that expertise. And we want to build and support institutional, repeatable change that takes into consideration the different cultures of different organizations. So one of my favorite outlets for humor, Terminal Lance, we are not looking for anything special or different. And I should be clear that NatSecGirlSquad is our name, but it is not, gender specific. Anyone who wants to be a NatSecGirlSquad can be a NatSecGirlSquad as long as you qualify, much like the Marine Corps. So you can have a stupid Marine Corps tattoo, and it has nothing to do with your gender. I've mentioned this idea of window dressing. For us, diversity is not a warm fuzzy. It's not something we do to sound nice. It's not a stock picture of a seemingly diverse group of people. This is about national security. If you are soft on diversity, you are soft on defense. It's my favorite talking point. This idea, again, that if you don't have the best people in the room and you're not supporting them in the ways they need to be supported, what's the point? So ultimately our aim is support America, right? That's why we're all in this business, decent meme. And this is basically what everybody is doing, right? Window dressing. This is what we want you to do. And with that, I would say this is a picture from our annual conference. And we've got, I guess, 5 people, but 7 agencies represented. This is what we're aiming for, especially the sweet ass members only jackets. And also world domination. So that's it. That's my first time using slides in 6 years. YOLO. If anyone has any questions, let me know.
That was awesome, Maggie. Thanks for that.